Hey there everybody, we're here in the shop and you are sitting on the grill of this 97 Chevy Suburban that we just picked up, the 2500 with a 454, and it's on the lift right now. It's going to get some maintenance items and some needed items and maybe some extra items. So let me show you what we're working with here. All right, we have a big old pile of rubber on some nice fancy Vision Manx wheels. And they're like a beadlock simulated black and machined wheel. So yeah, the truck needed tires and I opted for a little bit bigger than stock. But obviously a 35-inch tire ain't gonna fit. So we grabbed us this here suspension lift from Super Lift, and it's got all kinds of part lists and instructions and whatnots, and everything is supposed to be stamped or engraved or labeled per the part number. For example though, I'm not so sure where this goes and it's not on the list, so I'm gonna have to figure that out. I'm wondering if it might be part of the skid plate assembly, but we'll see. So we have begun laying everything out according to the parts list and just going through everything and working on making sure everything has the appropriate hardware per the instructions, and just going from there. We've also got a pile of parts here, and that concludes the list in the book. While I'm in here, I've already kind of inspected the front end of this. The pitman arm here, and then on the other end of that rod, the idler arm, are both loose. So I'm going to replace the pitman and idler arms, and everything else is good and tight. The brake pads still have some life left in them, but since I've got it all apart, I grabbed another set, and then I've got to inspect the rear drums, get those apart, and see what the shoes look like. Otherwise, everything on this seems to be very clean and not Michigan rusted. So I'm assuming everything is going to come apart very well and go back together pretty well as well. These rear drums are enormous, but it just seems like we've got a lot of strong pedal that's very firm, but it takes a long time to stop. So it could be just that we're not used to a rear drum brake vehicle anymore. But since we're adding so much more rolling stock, I want to make sure that our brakes are really good. So I'm going to be pulling those apart. I might have to just replace the drums as well as the shoes. We'll see how the wear goes. But as far as the rear end suspension lift, I couldn't find lift springs for this truck. These springs are 60 inches, and most lift kits for the Suburbans either have a 52 or a 56 inch spring available. So I had to go with the 4-inch block, but the truck has like about an inch squat on the driver's side. So I'm going to replace both leaf springs in the rear from a local spring supply company. Just a reminder, these are the tires that came on the Suburban. That's probably one of the better sidewalls. The tread wear is good, but the sidewalls are just gone. So rather than just staying stock, we opted for the lift and tires, more or less. Because people don't know how to be decent. People don't realize that when you open your door, you don't just bash it into a vehicle. You open your door and be conscientious of the next person over. Every Suburban my wife has had has been door dinged like crazy, and we are gonna make that problem go away. So the first real instruction in this manual is to remove the torsion bar tension and then pull the cross member and torsion bars out. I don't have that special tool, but I do recall working on a lift on a similar vehicle in this shop before the shop was mine. And so I know that we figured out a way to do this somehow or another. So that's my first to-do, and I can get the tension off that torsion bar, and we'll go from there. I also figured I'd point out too, I've got some safety measures in place. I've got a couple of these big tall jack stands when needed, and then also this beat up old transmission jack. So if I have to lower like the differential or the rear end or whatever the case may be, or maybe even those front A-arms, I can use these big tall tools to get everything done. So here's a benefit of not throwing stuff away. This is the old center pin off of my Wheelhorse 520xi, and I ground the edge of it down on the belt sander, took this piece of pipe and drilled a hole through it, stuck a big heavy bolt in, and with my floor jack I'll be able to compress that lift key and remove the rest of the adjustment screw. And that right there is where the slug was for the adjustment bolt. And now it's out on both sides, over there, wherever. But so now the torsion bar is loose. Now I can work on getting that cross member loosened and out of the way, and drive the torsion bars out of the front A-arms. If you haven't ever heard me say this before, I love rust-free vehicles. That torsion key right here, I loosened the bolts on the cross member and just tapped that welded reinforcement right there, and the whole cross member just slid right back, and the keys popped right off the torsion bars. So that's done. A little shot of penetrating oil, and that torsion bar wiggled right out of the lower control arm there. But this side's fighting me, so I've got a C-clamp pushing. I got spray on both sides, and I'm just wiggling, and it's starting to break loose. So just wiggle it, wiggle it, wiggle it, way over here. And there's a lot of tension spring being released over here. Okay, now that torsion bar cross member is out, and in the instructions it says you may need to lift the exhaust a little bit with the jack. Well, I ended up having to loosen the transmission cross member and jack the entire drivetrain up to slide the corner of that cross member underneath this one and then yank it out. So just beware.